Welcome to episode 32B of Successful Demo. Each episode analyze the theoretical and practical aspects of one more newly released cards. Today we will be resuming our successful demo on Anansi and NGO front. To kick things off, I'd like to sidetrack a bit and talk about the evolution of net damage benchmarks. Ever since the beginning days of Netrunner, players have learned either by trial and error or because more experienced players have taught them these guidelines that especially when playing against Jinteki players as the runner, you need to run with at least a certain amount of cards in hand, otherwise you will risk flatlining. Ever since the core set days, this benchmark, or rather this guideline, was 3 net damage, for the simple reason that every how should I put it, the most amount of damage that a single piece of ice or a single ambush can threaten is 3 net damage. So in theory, as long as you initiate a run with at least 3 cards in hand, you should not flatline. Of course, I am very well aware that in the core set there's this card called Project Junebug, but I consider that rather niched and telegraphed because you would need at least 2 advancement counters on it, and the runner has to be actually accessing that card. So it's a very specific situation. But in general situations, like when you're face checking a piece of ice or accessing non-advanced cards, 3 net damage is the guideline. I think if especially veteran players will also remember other key guidelines such as don't run last click, or end your turn with at least a couple credits. These sort of guidelines are instinctive and very good rules to follow if you don't want to get cheese out of a win as the runner. As time progressed and as the card pool expanded, this guideline and power levels were pushed, should I say. This guideline, the goalposts started to shift. In Honor and Profit, Honor and Profit was the Jinteki big box, and it brought a slew of extra net damage cards, one of which is an ice that threatened X net damage, which is pretty nasty. No longer do the cards follow the 3 net damage rule. Komainu can threaten 4, 5, as many net damage as you have cards in hand, which seems pretty imbalanced at first until you consider that by itself, Komainu can never flatline you, unlike Snare and Nero Katana. However, it's something that you still have to keep in mind, that now Ice can potentially wipe your entire hand instead of just dealing at most 3 net damage. The goalposts will further shifted in recent days, or in recent cycles I should say, as they started pushing a 4 net damage piece of ice. That's right, it's Chiyashi, this gargantuan barrier. Suddenly, we now have to worry that if we run against a rich Jinteki corporation, or any corporation for the matter, with 12 or more credits, they can threaten 4 net damage, which is pretty lethal for a lot of runners, especially Adam. Yeah, so with this scale of things, as time progresses, the ice gets more powerful and threatens more net damage. We ask ourselves, since this is a successful demo of Anansi, where does Anansi fit in on this timeline? At first glance, Anansi seems to be on the same power level as Chiyashi. It's just that it's a sentry instead of a barrier, because it has the 1 net damage clause, the 3rd subroutine, but also the 3 net damage on the encounter ending effect. So adding this together, it seems like Anansi is on par with Chiyashi. However, there's a very, very subtle way that a runner with fewer than 4 cards can actually escape impending doom, and that is with the 2nd subroutine. This is beautifully baked into the card. The runner can draw a card before taking the 1+3 net damage. So Anansi is actually, in terms of threatening a flatline, Anansi is on the same level as Nero Katana, in that a runner with 3 cards can always survive as long as they have enough money to pay to draw. Obviously, they need to pay 2 credits to draw a card. And so you might ask yourself, what's the point of running Anansi when I can simply run a Nero Katana? Obviously, the tax factor is one of it. It's a higher strength ice, it has more set routines, but also it does a whole host of other things. It has a pseudo precognition effect stapled onto it in the 1st subroutine, where you can look at the top cards of your deck, and the core can even draw. Also, we note that the 3 net damage on the encounter ending is an effect that we've never seen on any other ice before, and it subdues very brilliantly certain ways of getting past ice. I'm thinking of bypass effects like Femme Fatale, something like Security Nixus. All these cannot get past the 3 net damage effect of Anansi. So this is something interesting to note. In the grand scheme of things, this is where Anansi fits on the flatline timeline. If you did not check out episode 32A, be sure to do so, because that's where I run through with Yannick, also known as QVM, his Ag Infusion deck that won his local SC, featuring both of these cards. So we won't delve too much into it. However, this time I will be taking on the challenge as I attempt to run against his Ag Infusion. I will be playing the Canadian Nationals winning Valencia list, of course, created by Eric Keoli. Yes. And yeah, we will both actually know each other's list. So this is going to be an interesting sparring matchup. Now, yes, before this video occurred, we actually did a bunch of sparring matches before, about 5 or 6, and I won every single one of them. Some of them were close, some of them were complete blowouts. The Valencia deck seems pretty well positioned against the Ag Infusion. And then we played this final game where it ended up being really, really close. So I'm very excited to present it to you. Let's watch our commentary as I co-commentate with QVM. Okay, so to feature the Ag Infusion deck of QVM, he will be playing it as my opponent. I'll be playing Canadian Nationals winning Valencia with 1 or 2 card changes, very minor changes. Alright, so do you remember what your opening hand was here?
No.
Okay, I guess we will find out.
We see it.
Right, so it was double NGO fronts, Cortex Lock as the only ice, and a bunch more money cards. And then you ice R&D, but I told you should ice HQ here. Because otherwise I'm just going to trash all your NGOs. I was seriously considering running a HQ 4 times to trash the NGOs.
Yeah, maybe drop the sucker first, but yeah, otherwise...
Oh yeah, of course, drop the sucker. Yeah. So, at this point, I'm looking at my hand. It's quite meh. There are no money cards, but with all the draw, I was hoping to get some money. So, I was going to inject and see how things worked out there. Still no money cards, but I found the mining accident. So, that slowed you down a bit, but you had Celeb Gift and IPO anyway. Yeah, so do we want to give them a bit of a background? Prior to this game, we had a bunch of sparring matches between these two decks, and Valencia came out top every single time. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, like, no matter what you do, there's so many angles of attack. And I think this Canadian Valencia, by including Data Sucker, we haven't seen Data Sucker in like months. But it's actually really good against Ag Infusion. And especially, I think, how many does it run? 2 or 3?
2 copies with Ice Carver.
Oh, with Ice Carver. But you had it always, like, very early on. And by the time I start icing up, and there's never really time to purge or lock out even. It's not like back in the days with Mimic where you could lock out. This is just pure efficiency.
Yes.
And so it doesn't even make sense to purge at any stage.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, so it basically saves me a ton of money on breaking DNA Tracker and Anansi and Chiashi as well. All your very important ice. So I have a very awkward turn here where I have to recover from the mining accident. I think you recovered from it way better than I did. I needed to click for credits to play my Liberated, which was a huge tempo hit. So you basically bought you 1 or 2 turns to do your stuff here. But you weren't drawing ice, I think?
Yeah, I wasn't drawing any ice. So now we can see what I have.
Yeah, at this point your hand is very juicy, and if I had Omar here, that would be really sweet. But nope. So we know that the HQ Ice is a Cortex Lock. I could potentially use Bahali, the Crocodile, to get through HQ.
Oh, you don't want to waste that. You want to keep that for Excalibur.
Exactly, because Excalibur is one of your big win cons against this Valencia deck, which doesn't have an AI breaker. So I really need the Bahali for that. Alright, and the mind games begin. Install Ice, install Advance. I know you have NGO and Nisei Mark II, so it was one or the other. So when I told you here, I could easily get in. I think all of your, because we both know each other's deck list card for card. I'm pretty sure you can't stop me, right? If I drop Bahali and run.
Yeah, I thought you were just gonna take the damage or something.
Right.
The way you
yeah.
played previously was very reckless.
Yeah, I was playing very recklessly against QVM mostly because I knew his deck list card for card, so I didn't have to worry about random stuff like Neuro EMP or Snare, especially Snare. Nowadays, you never know when someone's running Snare.
Yeah, the thing is, snares are like negative hedge funds, so it.
Yeah.
I don't think I can afford them.
You'll be surprised how poor this deck gets, even though now you see QVM is flush with credits, but they get drained very, very quickly because you're running, what,
Yeah.
8 pieces of big ice, so yeah. I deduced that you probably wouldn't be jamming Nisei behind single ice, so I went for the setup instead, and turns out it worked out. That was one of your NGOs. So at this point, what are you looking for? I guess you're looking for your second piece of ice?
Yeah, second piece of ice, so I can start jamming the Nisei.
Did you think of playing slowly? So if you found your second ice, would you think of icing Archives instead to protect against Omar?
Not at that stage.
Ah.
More like to prevent data sucker and more free mining accidents as well. Yeah, it's kind of a combination of all those.
Speaking of mining
like
accident,
Yeah.
yeah, this was a very dumb move here. I ran Archives for a sucker counter, got the mining accident, but realized he had 33 credits. Not the most efficient use of my time. There, I definitely should have played Gamble, played Liberated, and take a lot of money. Or even just, drop the Earthrise. That would have been... No, I can't drop Earthrise. Draw a bunch of cards.
You already have one, yeah.
Yeah, because what I'm missing now is my breakers. So that was pretty bad play.
So I was thinking against Anarch, it makes sense to ice all centrals first because you get, dirty laundry into mining accidents, you get sucker counters and things. But I tried that in the previous games, and still, locking you out from all 3 centrals sufficiently was so expensive that I was still too slow, and then you still caught up.
Yeah, so in those games where I double mining accidented you, you left Archives open. Your typical opening was Ice Hedge Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so triple ice might have changed things.
If I do triple ice turn 1, then you know that you can run somewhere.
I have to respect Cortex Lock, funny enough.
Yeah.
But which is why you run that ice.
Yeah, that's why I run Cortex Lock, obviously.
But chances are I don't run the Cortex Lock anyway, and you're very far behind. That's true. Okay. More setup turns here. The early game is progressing rather slowly for me. But you find your second piece of ice, so it's jam and install advance.
Mm-hmm.
How confident were you of this remote? I forgot what it was.
So it's Cortex Lock inside and it's Anansi outside.
Oh, right, yes.
So if you run through all of this, you die.
Do I?
At this stage you die, but that's not what happened.
I think I survived that, right?
Or maybe you
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens.
Anansi is 3 net damage and Cortex is 3 because I have a 1 MU. So
okay, you can get through, but
I lose all my cards.
The high price.
Yes. But yeah, so
you had Gibali, which is already good for the inner ice, but now something funny happens.
Oh yes.
Successful demo.
Yes, I had to let the Anansi fire. I think I had Black Orchestra and Paperclip in the bin. The one breaker I was missing was MK Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
So
the one thing that I did, because I realized I'm going to lose that Nisei, I saw another Nisei deep down on R&D, and I was bringing it to the top and drawing it right away. So that later I can jam the next one, because I thought, okay, you have Gibali, but you're not going to run through all of this twice.
So that's the first subroutine of Anansi coming into play. I think you also top decked another card. Was it just the Nisei?
I think I got a Nisei ready, maybe an Enigma.
Yeah, okay.
I think some money. I think some money as well.
Right. Okay, so I paid to draw here for the second sub routine, and obviously it draws me into my Sentry Breaker.
Why did you say F F F U U U?
Because I was missing the Sentry Breaker and Anansi drew it for me. So it's like,
That's great.
like I wish I had it. Like the very next card was the MK Ultra. If I drew it beforehand, that would be awesome. So yeah, the funny thing is, the net damage of Anansi then snipes my MK Ultra, putting it in the bin.
So you can save yourself the Gabali, basically.
Yeah, so I get to break the Cortex lock while keeping my Gabali. And turns out that I managed to steal your Nisei. So stealing it was very good. Not only do I deny your Nisei, but I keep my strike up and in play, which was important.
Right.
And Mason Bellamy was useless this run because I think I ran last click.
Right.
Right, so that was actually a very big tempo loss for me. I mean, I had a lot of cards in hand, but the main thing was a lot of the cards you sniped were money cards. My cars, my liberated accounts. So that was the... Was that the Nisei? Possibly.
Yeah, so now I'm jamming in the next... I think I got a hedge fund and another Nisei to the top.
I see. Yeah, so there was no way I was contesting that. I didn't have enough hit points.
I think at that point you also knew that I still had an NGO on hand.
Yes, so I thought that could have been the NGO. I was wrong. So now we are even, 2 points apiece, but you do have the all-important Nisei token. I was actually okay with giving you the Nisei, because if you look at my hand, I have the turntable. So I can threaten you on centrals. At this point, I was hoping to draw Rebirth, so I can Rebirth Omar and start causing a lot of problems to for you. Yeah, so I just preemptively dropped the turntable here, ready to run again next turn. The problem is I can't really run either of your centrals right now because you're filthy rich and I don't have the money to break DNA Tracker or Chiashi. Chiashi would be really, really painful.
Right. You know my deck too well.
Yeah, so the thing is, yeah, I know your deck inside out. I think I played it a couple of times. But also, yeah, Eigen Fusion Glacier is, you know, once you get used to the fact that there are lots of big ice, you kind of know what to expect. When it first came out, like, I think a lot of people weren't used to the fact that Chiashi was a thing. And being dragged through Chiashi multiple times was very difficult. Like,
yeah, also in the UK, everyone was on Hydra, so people didn't expect Chiashi either.
Oh
so
yeah, that's a very nice bonus, yeah. Alright, so that looks like the NGO that you had early on, so I'm completely ignoring this as well, I think. Or am I? Wait, did I run this?
I forgot.
Yeah, this should be interesting to see, because I padded my hand here. Yeah, I think...
Oh yeah. I was actually quite happy to see that. I think it was quite obvious that it's just the NGO, but...
Yeah, at this point I just couldn't afford you to give you the third Nisei. Who knows whether you have found it by now. But yeah, in hindsight this might have been a mistake. The other thing I wanted to also prevent was you sneaking out Obo Carter this way. So you can bluff an Obo Carter as the next NGO. If I don't check it, you know, the Obo Carter is pretty much yours. So.
Oh, and then I advance it one more time. And,
yeah.
Oh, and now you saw the Obo Carter.
Yes, I actually saw it there, so I knew it was coming. If I had Rebirth...
But you were too poor to get in.
Yeah, but if I drew Rebirth earlier and used it, this would be the time to Omar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very interesting there. I knew you would draw the Obo Carter, so I was thinking, you are probably going to install double advance next turn, right? Because I'm poor.
Yes,
and you have
because you're so...
Yeah, and you have a lot of net damage ice. So I was setting myself up to steal the Obo Carter this turn.
And I was like, you're only on 1 credit, but then magically...
Exactly, yeah.
Mentally, I was already deciding to...
yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, because if I look at it from your point of view, it's a no-brainer. You install double advance this, there's no way I'm getting in. But
now you're at 8 credits, but I have...
No, you saw the stim hack of my Find the Truth.
Right.
Yeah, and you were like, oh, okay, I have more money than you initially thought. So this
Yeah.
stim hack is going to really help because I can run the remote twice. First time breaking all the ice, and second time tanking the net damage. I need to run twice obviously because you have the Nisei token. So yeah, so at this point I was thinking on how to get in. It's actually quite tricky because the second time I run, I mean the first time I run it's very easy, but the second time I run I cannot take too much net damage, otherwise I cannot afford to steal the Obo Carter, of course.
Yeah. So the key thing here is that you don't have sucker counters. And you're
Yes.
actually going to lose one on the first run. If this was like 6 sucker counters by now, this would be very, very different.
Yeah, and that's mostly because I wasn't able to set up. Having to run through the Anansi earlier, that was a huge tempo loss. So yeah, Anansi doing work and really causing a lot of problems because I'm not able to properly set up. I mean, if I had all the money from all my money cards earlier, that wouldn't be a problem either, but you sniped a lot of my money cards. So I'm going to stim hack here.
But yeah, but without any sucker counters, this server is what, like 15 credits. So
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if I had a lot of money, this turn I could simply run archives twice for sucker counters, and then run your server twice.
I think you were like one click short for that, yeah, or one sucker counter short. But yeah, you could also have used Gabali for the Cortex lock. But
Yeah,
still,
that gives up my win con, so that was pretty bad. I think I misplayed. No, I didn't misplay here. Actually, I kind of did. I should have ran archives before running your server. Instead, I think I decided to run your server click 3. Okay, so I took this back. To explain to the viewers what's going on here. There's an Anansi which does 3 net damage. There's no way I can work around that. I wanted the 3 net damage with the 1 net damage subroutine on Anansi to hit my I've had worse. So the 4 net damage total, I need my I've had worse to go down. Which will draw me 3 cards, which would then be enough for me to steal the Obo Carter with the 1 remaining card in my hand. So because of that, I had to take a gamble here, and gamble that your Anansi would hit my I've had worse when I started with 5 cards. So 80% chance, 4 and 5 to hit the I've had worse. If the Anansi completely misses the I've had worse, I basically lose. I can't contest the Obo Carter. So yeah, a very tricky situation there. But either way, I would have to break the Cortex lock at the end. So you were right, I should have ran archives before running the server to get 1 sucker
or
counter.
installed ice cover before doing the first run.
Yes.
You would have saved you a
So
sucker counter.
I was going to install ice cover. The reason I took that back was because if I installed it, I would start.
No, but like before the Steam hack run even. Maybe. Because you also used 1 sucker counter.
That is true.
So then you would be still at 1 sucker counter, and then a sucker, and this would get you up to strength for an answer.
Okay, I know what I know what I was thinking here. The reason I stim hack first thing was because I did not want the stim hack brain damage to hit my I've had worse. If the I've had worse gets knocked out, I can't run your remote at all.
Right.
So yeah, small chances there. At this point, I did not think the ice cover was a big deal. But in hindsight, another good play that I could have made was to install ice cover first, and then draw with Anansi. Because Anansi's second subroutine allows me to pay 2 credits to draw. So if I did that, I would be able to pad my hand to 5 cards as needed, and still have ice cover in play. That would have been the perfect play. I should have done that.
But then it would have done 3 damage.
Yeah, so the thing is, I needed to have 5 cards in hand before taking 4 net damage from Anansi. So if I drop the ice cover and draw with Anansi, I would have 5 cards. So
yeah, okay. Okay.
I needed to do that. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing because I thought I had this figured out when as you can see, I'm playing this video back in real time. So I took a very long time to ponder over this play, and I still made a suboptimal play. I should have dropped the ice cover first. So that was really funny. So I didn't draw here, because I needed to maximize the chance of you hitting my iPad worst. This is counterintuitive, but that's how it works. So, yep. Also, I needed the credits to break Cortex Lock, so there you go. So you're gonna fire the 1 net damage, it misses. But then the Anansi damage fires and it hits the iPad worst, so I'm exactly on 4 cards. And I can break the Cortex Lock to steal your Obo Kata. Yay, I'm on match point! Woo! Alright, so typically does your game plan change when the runner's on match point, like I am right here?
There is some play if you have like 2 Obokatas, you can try to push both of them.
Yeah, so one really cool thing that you always did in our games was you steal 1, I score 1.
Yeah. Now the problem is I actually see that you draw an iPad verse with Find the Truth. And I wanted to push something, I think right here, like a Nisei maybe. But then I knew you could let the Anansi fire.
Yep.
And then, it does 1 damage, then it does 3 damage.
Yep.
And then you can break the Cortex Lock and get the Nisei, and then you win. So, so yeah, seeing like it's actually quite interesting with Find the Truth.
Yeah, the downside rarely. I mean, it doesn't often help the core, but in this case, it definitely did.
Yeah, I probably would have jammed it. So I think I also had an Enigma, and I know that costs you $5 the first time you want to get through. And then I also had a Navi Grid to, so you cannot fire Gabali.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to sequence that, and I think what I ended up doing is I dropped the Nisei. I think I dropped the Nisei and the Navi Grid into the remote and the Enigma on top, and I knew you couldn't get in. But also I didn't advance it yet.
Yeah, so even if you did not drop the Enigma, I would not have contested the remote at all, because there's too many mind games.
Yeah, and there's just 2 unadvanced cards.
Yeah, I at this point, looking at how thin my stack is, I definitely cannot afford to run your remote only to see the 3rd NGO. So I was, at this point, because I'm on match point, I could afford to just remote camp you. So just keep taking credits since I have all my breakers. Keep taking credits, and then if you advance anything in the remote, I will go for it. At this point, you spent 2 NGOs, so I know there's 1 remaining, as you can see there. Yep, 2 NGOs. So yeah, in theory, I should be able to lock your remote. And I'm counting the cards in my deck as well. I have 1 more Employee Strike remaining, so you can't really stop me with Egg Infusion Boop or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I draw into Omar Rebirth here, which is pretty cool. I would have Rebirth and Omar one of your centrals, but I respected the fact that you might have a Philotic in the remote. 2 net damage, right? So that's why I did not go for the Omar run. Okay, so you double advance the thing in the remote there, and I'm
just to piss you off.
Yeah, so what was I thinking here? Yeah, I think it was very difficult for me to go for it here, and that there was running centrals would be a lot safer. Like I Find the Truth, and yeah, I Omar Archives.
Yeah, I had no ice on hand, otherwise I would have dropped an ice as well on Archives. I think I played Hedge. Yes, I played Hedge.
Yeah, so as you said, the big problem is I had no sucker counters, and Ice Cover was in the bin. So Anansi is prohibitively expensive to break. 9 credits, that's way too much. So no way I was getting in. And if that's if that's 3-point agenda, like your Obokata or SSL, that means you're spending your whole next turn scoring it. So it'll buy me 1 more turn to run your centrals. So I decided to let it go. Unfortunately, there was nothing on R&D, so too bad for me. So the biggest problem here is that I was okay with letting you get an NGO. I was okay with you getting a 5-3 agenda. But it turns out that was neither of that.
Yeah, you're never okay with giving anyone a Nisei.
Yeah, it turns out that you actually drew the third Nisei. You didn't fast track for it, right? I don't think you fast track for it, but you might have Anansi for it.
No. I think did Anansi fire? Yeah, I think I Anansi 2 Niseis up actually this game.
Yeah, so Anansi actually doing
so like
a lot
2
of work.
pre-recognitions basically.
Yeah.
And it's great. I then can take it straight to my hand with Anansi because it's a bit more risky to be on top of R&D.
Exactly. I could have punished you for that if I had Omar earlier on, but I never did. So so you scored the last Nisei, and that's a very big problem. That Nisei token is going to bite me later on. But now I just keep, hammering centrals. First R&D, no agenda. And we RNG key. Okay. Yeah, so I was thinking here, remote locking you is going to become very difficult now because you can drag me through the Anansi 2 times. So that's a very big problem. So after drawing the turning wheel, I decided my play was to just keep farming turning wheel counters on centrals, and hopefully challenge anything you put in the remote. So at this point, how secure are you feeling? I think the remote, you basically have the remote on lock, right? Because you have Mason Bellamy inside.
By the way, that last card I drew, no, I have Navi Grid inside. The last card I drew was SSL. So I drew past your... I only once drew past your Omar lock, and that was an agenda, so I was quite lucky there.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty
yeah,
good.
and 1 second, sorry. And then I dropped the Chua on the remote. No, I actually dropped the Chua on the remote, but I also had an Excalibur. And then I thought, wait, I'm gonna prolong that game by 1 turn. So it's actually not the same ice. So now I have Excalibur on the remote.
Yeah,
so
because you want to set up for your SSL score, right?
Right. So now R&D just needs to hold for 2 turns.
Correct.
Like if this was Mason, then yeah, I wouldn't need that actually. In that case, with the token, I think I could just let you run in once. It's basically like an Excalibur, right? You waste your whole turn. But it was Navi. So the idea was, with Excalibur and Navi, you kind of break it, and even if you could, I can let you run twice through the Excalibur.
Actually, I'm not so sure about Mason because I have the option to not break the first subroutine on Enigma, which was your remote ice, the third piece.
Yeah, but if you don't break the...
Oh yeah, I lose a click. I'm dumb. What am I thinking?
And so the one key thing about Mason that makes him from like completely unplayable to somewhat okay is there's some other cards like that trigger, one I think reduces your hand size, one mills your card. Yeah. But what Mason does, it triggers as soon as you break a single subroutine. You don't need to break all subroutines.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't play it. Seriously. Like that's... By the way, you ran HQ twice and you had 2 times a 1 in 5 chance to win.
Yeah. It was a case of I made the right play, but luck didn't work out.
But yeah, like if you play something like Mason, like if it wasn't like that, if it needed all subroutines to be broken to fire, I would never play it. I think it would be complete garbage.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So I knew I wasn't getting in the remote, even if I played strike. I had the impression that it was the Mason Bellamy in the remote, so I kind of figured that I would never have enough clicks to make it in this remote, so I conceded the SSL to you. Instead I went for central, so the HQ run was just to get 1 more turning wheel counter, and I was hoping to get 2 R&D runs. Find the Truth gives me the bad news. The top card of R&D is Chiashi, so I need to go deeper with turning wheel to find agendas. Now the big problem here is that you had the Nisei counter. So here I made a misplay. I drew up to 4 cards so that I could steal your remaining Obo carters. But this meant that I didn't have enough clicks to run your R&D. because with 2 remaining clicks, you can say boot me, and then you can Egg Infusion boot me. So I was done.
Right.
So yeah, very common misplay. I forgot about Egg Infusion's ability. And yeah, so you pull out the victory there.
And I checked, like, yeah, in this you wouldn't have won. R&D was very lucky here. I think I'm doing a res all in a second, and then we can see the...
Yeah, hopefully I actually recorded the res all. Yeah, I did. That's okay. So, yeah. There we go. Anything interesting?
Yeah. Well, so the Enigma was basically a lockout for the remote.
Yeah. I could break... No, I couldn't even break it with Gabali because he had Navi Grid. So...
Now, yeah. Now, but even if you could have, right, with the Nisei token, that's why I used the Nisei token that early, because I still had the boop, right? I need either the boop or the Nisei token.
Yep.
Yeah, but we shouldn't forget that you beat me about 4 or 5 times before this.
Yeah, so it's very funny.
The stars had to align.
We actually played a lot of games before this, and yeah, it was basically I think we spent about 1.5 hours sparring between each other, and I basically did pretty well. I think there were 2 games where you basically instantly lost because I started with double mining accident. Another big problem for your deck. The bad pub really adds up.
Yeah, this Valencia, I think if we look back at the Valencia from Worlds with indexing, that this deck can play around easier, or that had Film Critic. Now this Valencia here, the Canadian Valencia, is a lot better against this deck. Gabali, Data Sucker, like, I have a lot of outs, but you also have a lot of outs, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of tools in this deck.
Yeah.
So I initially thought indexing makes a lot more sense, because with indexing you can R&D lock the corp. But it turns out that even though I can't R&D lock with Find the Truth, like this game I lost because you managed to draw the SSL between my Omar runs.
Yeah, but that was super lucky.
Yeah, but still, Find the Truth does a lot of work. Like, I could keep running HQ, and knowing that there are no agendas on R&D, I could spend my time doing something more productive instead. So,
and I also used to run Mirachu, which would be great here, but then you need the setup of it being behind an expensive ice. And then you also have Omar, and that makes Mirachu really sad as well.
Yeah, and if Mirage's on the outside, like if you draw it late, it can work against you because...
Yeah, we saw that in your last video.
Yeah, well, clearly you watched my videos as well. That's awesome. Okay, so before we close off, I guess this was a successful demo of Anansi. I don't think I've had any other game where Anansi fired this many times and was a benefit for both the runner and the corp. On my side, it was really creative where I was able to use Anansi to my advantage by drawing up with I've Had Worse. How did you find the Anansi?
Yeah, Anansi is great. Sadly, the people didn't see, right, how the Nisei was like far down and I managed to get it on top. You know, pre-recognition is a good card, but of course you would never play it. If you can have it as an effect of your ice, that's a lot better. And also it's really, really expensive. What we also didn't see when we were playing together, we didn't play against any Sunnies or against anyone with Femme Fatale.
Oh yeah.
I think it really adds that little spice. So, you know, this versus DNA Tracker, it's about similar, but depending on the matchup, Anansi can be a lot better than DNA Tracker.
For sure. Like, it's really annoying for Anarchs because it has 3 subroutines and MK Ultra can only break 2. Like, unlike most other ice, you don't want to break Anansi partially because, you don't want to let one subroutine fire because of the 3 net damage effect. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting ice for both the corp and the runner, so I think it's a well-designed card.
It is. And... yeah, so I think you saw in our previous game where we played Smoke. It's not that good against Smoke, but you know, that's just Dagger being Dagger. Otherwise, it's a pretty solid sentry. Yep. All right. So thanks very much for your time, QVM.
Yeah, well, thank you for hosting me. It was lots of fun.
Yeah, and I hope you viewers enjoy this collaboration. I think we got to showcase some really interesting matches and a very powerful deck that
Well,
SC winning.
Canadian Valencia.
Yeah, I was thinking Egg Infusion, but yeah, Canadian Valencia is pretty good as well. So hopefully you enjoy this more competitive oriented content. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from QVM.
Yep, bye bye.
And goodbye from me. Happy net running. Goodbye. Did I record that? I did.